What is going on, squad? Welcome to another episode of the one, the only, the Make Fit Happen podcast. I am your co-host, the infamous Jupe Jupington Bornman, and joining me, as always, is Amanda, the pterodactyl. Kim, what's going on?
Is that your pterodactyl?
Yeah, that was my pterodactyl noise. I don't know. You put pterodactyl, so I was like, all right, cool. I guess I'm doing a fucking pterodactyl voice.
I guess I'm making
Your fucking
noises.
face was like, what the fuck is wrong with him?
You sounded like a dying freaking vulture. I don't even know what that was.
Yeah, that's what pterodactyl sounded like. Exactly. You've obviously never seen any dinosaur documentary ever.
Apparently not.
No, that's exactly how a pterodactyl sounds. Petrie's mom sounds exactly like that.
Petrie from Littlefoot sounds exactly like
Yeah,
this.
exactly. So, yeah, you're missing out.
Oh my god.
Guys, today, for whatever reason, Sunday is like our Sunday fun day, and it tends to be more of like a looser format. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Something that's been I'm always super passionate about martial arts and MMA, and very recently there was some controversial stuff. A man who's in the news, the one, the only, the notorious Connor Mcgregor has been in the news. So we're going to talk about Connor McGregor. We're going to talk a little bit about UFC, MMA, talk about training, nutrition around fighters, and just what all it entails and how Connor McGregor came into the limelight, because I think that his rise to fame was super cool. We'll get into some other stuff that's more recent, but I'm going to go ahead and get started with this whole shebang today. So I think you've had his whiskey before, right?
Yes, I have. It's very good.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. It's smooth, I have to say.
Yeah.
I think he is
Katie's had it
Irish.
too.
Yeah,
I mean,
he is Irish,
yeah.
So he knows his whiskey.
Yeah. So here is what we are going to get into today. So the one, the only, the notorious Conor McGregor. He is Irish. He was born in Ireland. I believe he was born in Dublin, Ireland, I want to say.
I want to say that as well. Like, I feel like in his documentary, he didn't mention that.
Yeah. He was born in Crumlin, Dublin, Ireland on July 14, 1988. He's only 33 years old. From Ireland. He also played soccer a whole lot. But then at 12 years old, he started to get into boxing as a way to defend himself, because Connor was a little guy. You might not know it, but I mean, he looks small compared to other UFC fighters, actually kind of tiny, but he was bullied a whole lot in they called it in, what do they call it? Not in primary. I think they call it primary over there, but basically it's like junior high. In junior high, he was bullied a whole lot, which is why he got into MMA, and he just absolutely fell in love with it. And he, when he turned 18, he had one job. He was a plumber for 1 year. And then he just was like, fuck this shit. I got to go directly into training MMA. So he was just like very hungry to be a UFC champ from the start. And back in the Dizzy, when was his first fight? So he only has one amateur fight, which is super duper cool. His first amateur fight was when he was 18 years old on February 17th, 2007. He made his first mixed martial arts debut as an amateur fighter in an Irish Ring of Truth promotion is what it's called. That was in Dublin. He won by TKO in the first round, and then the following night he turned professional immediately and signed for the Irish Cage of Truth promotional thing. So for those of you guys that don't know, when they talk about a promotion, for example, this is like, so here's a tip for all you guys listening in. When someone says I do martial arts, don't ever say, oh, you do UFC, because that's like asking a football player, oh, do you do NFL? It's like, no, you can play for the NFL, but you do not do NFL. Okay.
Right.
There's lots of different fight promotions around the world, right? When we're talking about fight promotions, it's like companies that put on a fight. The big one here in Denver is called Sparta. There's also, UFC obviously is the one that everyone knows. Bellator, I think, is another big one. One Championship.
I was going to say Bellator.
Yeah, Bellator is one. One Championship is another really cool one that I like to watch a whole lot, and I'll get into why later. But the day after he had his first MMA fight, Conor McGregor, back in 2007, the day after he signed for the Irish where did it go? He signed his professional contract for the Irish Cage of Truth promotion in 2008, and that's whenever he immediately went pro. And in his story, go ahead.
I was about to ask. So, as you're reading that, are you saying that he became a pro even before his first amateur fight, or he literally had his amateur fight and then they were like, he's this good, we're going to sign a professional contract?
Yeah. So February 17th, he had his first ever amateur fight at 18 years old. February 18th, he signed his contract and became a professional.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And his,
I feel like that's unheard of.
Yeah, that would be my guess. I would assume that it's unheard of. Like I've never heard of that before. I also don't go into the history of fighters a whole lot. But absolutely wild. He is an absolute animal. This is way back when he was he was a plumber for 1 year. Then after he went pro, he stopped his plumbing, so he only had one job outside of ever being an MMA fighter. And he was living with his mom, I believe. It was either his mom or his grandma. I forget which one. Probably his mom. His mom and his girlfriend were both, or no, he was living with his girlfriend at the time, who is now his wife, which I think is really cool. And they were living in his mom's attic because they're just like, they had all this faith in
poor.
Yeah, absolutely dirt ass poor.
Yeah.
In Ireland. And yeah, it was crazy. So then he actually didn't get into UFC until later. But in his he started in 2008 from 2008 to 2013. He was still, traveling around, being a professional fighter, all over Ireland and stuff like that. He didn't get into UFC until 2013. And that's whenever his career really started to take off. His professional, his entire martial arts career, he has 28 fights total, 22 wins, 19 by knockout, 1 by submission, and then he has 6 losses in his career. So not bad.
That's an impressive, that's an impressive win to loss ratio.
It really is. And he's an absolute animal. As I'm sure everyone has seen. I apologize, I dropped my lid. But he's also done a lot of cross promoting. I think that the thing that makes Connor so likable and watchable, I think he's just so good at marketing himself. And like, there's a lot of controversy around Connor. And he's actually a nice dude.
I think people. Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. I think people forget he plays a character. Like, he's not actually that much of an asshole in real life. He is just perpetuating a character that he knows people will gravitate towards. Because I remember the biggest difference I saw in that is when he was a coach on The Ultimate Fighter, the TV show. He's very different when he's like trying to teach other people how to do things. He's very much more nurturing and very like, I want to help you. And then when they did his documentary and they basically followed him around for, I think, almost a year leading up to a fight with, I don't even remember who the fight was with now. I don't think it was Khabib.
Which one though?
I think it was Nate. I think it was Nate Diaz.
That had all that controversy where they were throwing chairs and shit.
Right.
Yeah, that was against Nate Diaz.
I think it was Nate. I think it was Nate Diaz. And like, they followed him throughout his training, throughout his daily life. And he's a much more chill, like, laid back guy than this character that he creates for UFC.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the reason why that happens is he does it to draw a crowd. So just to kind of put this into perspective, right? Fighters get paid if they're the main event off of pay-per-view. That's in Connor's contract. Okay. In the UFC promotion, they have like a fight of the night is what it's called, where they give out a fight bonus. Like, for example, the last guy, and I want to say it was on Saturday. No, it was the night that Connor fought. This guy went in and he got a $75,000. He's a brand new guy. he won on the Ultimate Fighter once or twice, and then got a contract, and then he fought against O'Malley is his name, Sean O'Malley, and he got a $75,000 fighting bonus. So like the better you perform, the more you get, right? So there's actually a little deal here where it talks about what he's made. So his biggest pay-per-view draw in MMA history was headlined of 5 out of the 6 highest ever. So his bout with Khabib, I apologize. He has 5 out of the 6 highest selling UFC events in UFC history.
Damn.
So with Khabib, he drew 2.4 million in pay-per-view. And then with Mayweather, because he also did a boxing match with Mayweather. We'll get into that in a second.
Right.
But he drew 4.3 million as well.
Damn.
Yeah, and he is the world's. Let's see. He in 2021, McGregor was ranked the world's highest paid athlete by Forbes in 2021 with a reported 180 million. So keep in mind, they're talking about the highest paid. Not like the net worth, just the highest paid out of just cash, 180 million. And then in 2018, he was the 4th highest ranked with 99 million. So why do we bring up how much he makes? Because he draws a crowd. Bottom line. That's why he does what he does, because he draws a crowd. He's actually a super cool dude. Whenever you see him off camera, when he's not trying to get hyped for stuff, like I think he also tried to go to WWE at one point with his little thing. I feel like I saw that somewhere.
I heard rumors that he thought about it, but I don't know if he actually ever intended to go to WWE, because he is small. Yeah. Like, he would fall in the category of like what Finn Balor is right now to WWE, because Finn Balor's like a tiny guy, but he's freaking shredded.
Yeah.
So people love him because of how he looks, and like he's a super shredded dude. Like, that's where Connor would fit in. I think he's too small to be in WWE. So I think that's why he never went after it.
So speaking of size, we'll get into how big he is as well, because one of the things in fighting is that there are weight classes. I want to say in one championship fighting, and I'm going to say one, it's literally ONE. So I'm not just saying in one of those. It's literally called one. They have a no weight category, I want to say, where you just go in and go fight people. But in UFC, they do everything by weight class. So Connor, he's 5'9", and I'll go into what the different weight classes mean. But from 2008 to 2015, he fought in featherweight, and then he also from 2008 to 2012 fought in lightweight. From 2008, and then in 2016 to 2018, he fought at lightweight, and then in 2021, he also fought at lightweight, and in 2016 and 2020, he fought in welterweight. So going in 3 different weight classes is also like unheard of, and it was unheard of in UFC. The weight classes, until him. The weight classes go as so. For men, there's flyweight, which is 115 to 125, bantamweight, which is 125 to 135, featherweight. So Connor fought at featherweight. So keep this in mind when you hear these next few numbers. So featherweight is 135 to 145. Lightweight is 145 to 155. Welterweight is 155 to 170. So Connor fought between 135 pounds and 170 pounds. So what is that? 35.
That's a lot of weight.
It's a 35-pound difference that he has won. And he also had 2 belts. He had a belt in, I want to say, lightweight, and a belt in featherweight. Both.
Yeah.
Wild. After that, we have middleweight, which is 170 to 185. Then we have light heavy, which is 185 to 205. And then we have heavyweight, which is 205 to 265. So it's basically like, just don't be a massive chunker at 265, and you'll be fine in the heavyweight. So he's fought in all 3 of those different weight classes.
Unless you're freaking Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, right. I know. So currently,
dude's a beast.
Let's get into present day. Mr. Connor McGregor, after his last little deal, so he fought at lightweight. That's kind of where he's ranked at right now, is in the lightweight division. And just to recap, lightweight division is the 145 to 155 category. I believe he walks around at 170. So he cuts
like when he's not getting ready for a fight.
Correct. Yeah. If he's not before weigh-in, he walks around at 170. So it's 5'9", 170 pounds. So he weighs 30 pounds less than I do. At the moment. Yeah. So think about that for a second. He weighs 30 pounds less than I do. Walks around at 170, cuts down to 155. Now, he was ranked 5th overall in UFC rankings. He is now, since his Dustin Poirier event of his little trilogy, he is now ranked 7th. He dropped 2 spots, and Dustin Poirier is now, the way that they do it in UFC is that there's a champion, who is just obviously is the highest rank there is, and then after, like, the next up is 1. So for example, Dustin Poirier is ranked 1 or 1st, but he's not the champion, so it's a strange thing like that. You see what I'm saying? If you have the belt, you're just the champion, and then Dustin Poirier is ranked number 1.
So I don't know much about their beef. Like, I know Conor McGregor and Justin Poirier have a beef. Do you know what the backstory of that is?
So one of the things about Conor McGregor is that when he's like in his prime, like ready to fight and like enough stuff like that, it's going to be a good fight, because what he does is he gets this, like, I'm going to absolutely fucking kill you mentality. And that's when he's sharp. And you can see it in the Poirier trilogy, where, or even in his early career, he just was like whenever he weigh in, he just like has this face. It's just like, I'm just gonna fucking kill you. Whenever they go to do the weigh-ins, he has like the super intense face, right? And then and that's just the way he's gonna be a killer whenever he's like has this, just like you can see it in his eyes. It's just like a different breed of human that you can just see. Like, his goal is, I'm gonna kill you. Okay.
Right.
So in the first fight against Dustin Poirier, he had that. He was like, I'm gonna absolutely fucking kill you. I'm gonna murder you. Like, you're gonna go out in the first round. And he did win. I don't remember how he won, but I just know that he won the first one, right? So then they did Poirier McGregor 2, and in that one, they were all nice to each other, and like Dustin Poirier has a hot sauce. Dustin Poirier has a hot sauce brand, so he gave Connor some hot sauce, and then Connor gave him some of his whiskey. They shook hands at the press conference, and we're all nice and stuff. And you could tell that, like, Connor's just not hungry for it anymore, Right. So, and then he got his ass kicked. Right, he actually got completely knocked out. So then in this last one, for those of you guys that didn't see, he was knocked out by doctor stoppage, is the way that they listed it. I believe it'd be TKO, technical knockout, because he fractured his left ankle and snapped it in half completely. So to kind of like keep it going, apparently at the very, very end, like they're fine like all through the thing, and he was just like, I'm gonna fuck you up and I'm gonna kill you, and he's talking his usual shit.
Right. But
then as Poirier is leaving the ring, Connor yells something to the tune of, "Oh yeah, that's why your wife is in my DMs trying to get with me," kind of shit. And it's just at this point, he's just trying to like, and then Dustin said, "Oh yeah, there's gonna be a 4th fight." And they're like, "Oh, when do you think?" And he was like, "I don't give a shit if it's in the octagon or if it's in the street. I'm gonna beat him the fuck up, because you can't talk shit about somebody's family like that." And that's just what Connor does. Right. Unfortunately, I think Connor, I don't think he's done. But I think I don't think he'll ever get a belt ever again. I don't think he'll ever get a championship.
I would say he's past his prime. Yeah, I would say he's past his prime when it comes to the championship, which is weird because physiologically, your prime as an athlete is between the ages of 28 and 35.
Yeah.
So like he's right in that middle sweet spot of
Yep.
you should be at your prime in terms of muscle development, in terms of your maturity is like a big one for males. Like when males start to hit like their early to mid 30s is when you really start to see a shift in their maturity. And then, physically your body has matured a lot more. So like from a scientific perspective, he actually should be at his absolute prime. But I think because he's been fighting for so long, and fighting's a completely different animal than like football or baseball or any of those sports are, I don't think the longevity is as much. And I think for fighters, their real prime is like their mid to early 20s.
Yep, exactly.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Or
no, that sounds about right, to be honest. I think there's a select few who can go longer. I know that what the hell is his name? Let me look up this guy. Steven Thompson. There's a mixed martial artist named Stephen Thompson, who he's still doing really well. He's ranked. Let me see if I can find him. What does he fight in? He lives in South Carolina. He's 6 foot. He's a very unusual fighter because his background is Taekwondo. Which when you do Taekwondo, you do a very, you don't do like a staggered stance. You have like 1 foot literally like directly in front like this. So instead of having your, how the fuck do I do this? I got to find an example here. I got to find some stuff to make an example. Okay. So normally when you fight, you're like this, right? So your feet are kind of like this. So your left foot's forward, your right foot's back. He's literally completely turned, which is very unusual to be completely to the side. And it's very different. He's super duper cool dude and all. But 170, that's what he fights in. Okay. Let me see if I can find him where he's ranked at. He's 38. But he's still like on main cards quite a bit. So he'll fight in welter. There we go. So he's still ranked 4th at 38 years old.
That's impressive,
right? So it's not bad, He said himself that he's had a couple of he was actually on a Joe Rogan podcast recently, and he's had 2 reconstructive surgeries, but for his knees, but they actually took cadavers. They took Achilles tendons from cadavers and replaced his ACL, so it's stronger now because for those of y'all that don't know anatomy, your Achilles tendon is stronger than your ACL. So now his knees are stronger than they were before. So I just think that Connor's not hungry enough anymore. This is like we said earlier. He's made $180 million. Like he doesn't care anymore. He's putting on a show.
You think his motivation?
Yeah, I think
you think his motivation is way down. And I don't know if it's necessarily the money that stopped his motivation. I think it's the fact that he has kids now, because his kids are young, and he has 3 kids. 2 kids.
He has
something
2.
like that.
I think he has
right?
2. Yeah.
I think they've become his priority more so than his fighting career, because I think in the beginning of his life, fighting was all he had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it consumed him, and like that was the only thing that was important. And I think once him and his wife started having kids, the kids are his entire life. Because if you follow him on any social media, majority of his social media is taken up with pictures of his kids and doing stuff with his kids. He hardly ever talks about fighting on his social media anymore.
Yeah.
So I think he has kind of come down to earth and really want to be like, hey, I'm a family man now. I don't need to beat my face in order to prove something anymore.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of his training, so he is a big proprietor of doing fasted cardio. He is also a proponent of the vertical diet. I don't know if you knew that or not, but he does a vertical diet.
I did not.
That's his favorite diet, is a vertical diet. We've talked about that on a previous podcast. Go check it out. But what he does fastest cardio first thing in the morning, and then he eats, and then he does an afternoon. He does afternoon jujitsu or sparring or heavy pads or whatever he does, and then he eats again, and then he has another session at night. So he runs 4 days a week, and then he also does practical stuff, rest, weights, rest, repeat. So he'll either do 2 technical sessions. So when I talk about technical sessions, there's That's where you're like, hitting pads, drilling with somebody, like you're trying to develop skill, not necessarily physical power, like weights or anything like that. You're trying to develop a skill of some sort. So he does 2 sessions every single day, 5 days a week.
Wow.
So that's his thing that he does. So I'm sure he doesn't train like that anymore, but that's how he used to. And he's also only a brown belt, which I find very surprising.
In which
in jiu-jitsu. He's only a brown belt in jiu-jitsu.
In jiu-jitsu. Gotcha.
Yeah. I find, which I'm very surprised at.
Can you kind of explain, like, where does a brown belt fall in all the belt listings?
Sure.
Like, where does that really rank him?
Sure. So, with the way that jiu-jitsu works, in most places, you start off as white, and you get stripes on your belt every testing time. So we'll say that you do really well. It goes white, and there's 4 stripes, and you become blue, and then blue gets 4 stripes, and you become purple, and then you get 4 stripes, and you become brown, and you get 4 stripes, and you can get to black, and then there's different degrees of black. Just to kind of put in perspective,
Gotcha.
Most black belts take consistent work 10 years to become a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
He's got about I would say 6 years probably, just because I'm trying to kind of put into perspective how much he trains. So I would bet that he probably trains more than others. So a brown belt could typically take you 6 to 8 years. I bet you he did it in 6, at least, would be my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
because of how frequently he trains.
Exactly. So when we go into like his training as well, like if I was to put it in like they did it. There's a what is it called? Documentary called Notorious about him and his training. But to kind of put in perspective, the way that it works for a fighter is that you would does his morning, eat his first session. Let's say he does only jiu-jitsu because he wants to get good at, like, rolling on the ground and getting his groundwork good. So he'll do jiu-jitsu first, maybe a little bit of like kickboxing, right? And where you're not sparring anybody, then he'll eat. And then his afternoon session is where he'll spar with a partner. Like they're going probably about 80%, which if you guys have ever, I just go try to hit a heavy bag for 10, 15 minutes. That'll kind of give you a taste of what it's like to spar with somebody. So he's probably sparring for at least 45 minutes to an hour. Then he probably does some more. He probably does like some body conditioning after that, like some abdominal training, maybe a little bit of weights. But that's what he does every single day. Wild. It's a lots and lots and lots of training.
And does he do that in his off season as well, or this is only leading up to a fight?
I bet back in the day he probably did more training. I bet now he doesn't do as much because he has the skill. So when you're training for a fight, you can, if you know your opponent, you can train for that opponent. So for example, like he knew that Dustin Poirier was going to try to, probably try to shoot more and take him to the ground. So he probably practiced a lot of like counters to that. But if you don't know, if you don't know your opponent, really, you're just training to keep your eyes sharp. So you're trying to like look and see, like if you can read someone's cross, read their hooks, read their body kicks. You're trying to see what you can read on another person, because the less, like if you get really good at at sparring, and then you take a lot of time off, then you actually lose your, I don't want to say lose your eyesight, but your eyes don't stay sharp is kind of the term.
You lose your feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was about to say you lose your feel for like when you're like watching something.
Exactly.
Like like my example is like today, Jupe texted me his power clean, and he was asking for like a critique on it. And like, for me, I could look at a video of, it wasn't that bad, but I could look at a video and I could instantly, in full like speed, right? And I'll instantly tell you what's wrong. Like it's just, I see it immediately. Now, if after I watch it 3 or 4 times is when I pick up on other things. So like when the first time he sent it to me, I was like, hey, you just don't have any hip explosion. This is what's keep holding you back, because that's like the big problem, right? And then I slowed it down and watched it a couple more times, and I was like, also the bar's too far away, also this, also that. And it's just like I think it's similar to fighting, is like when you see it so many times, you start to get I don't know the way to describe it, but a feel of like what's coming next, or you anticipate what will be the next action. And I think when you stop doing that, so like if I stop watching videos of people work out, or if I stop recording myself when I work out to look at my form, I lose the feel of like, am I doing this correctly or not?
Yep. Exactly. That makes total sense. So that's what it's like. And when you get ready for a fight, like we call it prep, right? In the bodybuilding community, it's called doing a fight camp whenever you're in MMA. So it's called doing a camp whenever you're prepping for a fight. So that's his schedule whenever he's probably getting ready for camp. Everybody's in a camp getting ready for a fight. But there's not a whole lot you can do to prep. Like in 12 weeks, let's say 16 weeks of a fight camp, you're not going to learn some kind of absolutely monumental move that's going to just destroy your opponent. It's impossible. That takes years and years and years of drilling a movement. So the camp is really designed to get your body in shape, get you cut down to your fight weight that you're trying to cut down to. And then if you know your opponent, then you can train for things that they do. But other than that, a camp is really just getting in really good shape.
Yeah. And is it mostly conditioning, like your endurance and your conditioning throughout the fight, because you'll get exhausted and you just need to be able to last, is it 5-minute rounds?
Yeah. So, yes, it is. So in UFC, they do the regular fights, if they're not a championship fight, are 3 5-minute rounds. If it's a championship fight, then it's 5 5-minute rounds. Unless obviously they stop it prior, but it's scheduled for 5. So yeah, so it's really just getting your endurance up. You're teaching your body to expend all this energy for 3 to 5 minutes, and then you're training your body to recover for 60 seconds. So it's the most absurd form of HIIT training, basically.
Yeah, I was about to say. It's like high intensity for majority, like 90% of it, and then you have 10% where it's rest.
Correct. And then you also have to take into account that your style, like doing kickboxing and Muay Thai and Taekwondo and all these striking martial arts is way different than jiu-jitsu, where you're on the ground and you're just squeezing the whole time, right? Like if you just sit here and squeeze as hard as you can for 30 seconds, you're gonna get tired and sweaty. So now imagine squeezing another person while they're squeezing you back, and then shoving, and like you're just tight like I almost said like a cobra, wrong animal, like an anaconda or a python.
Like a tiger.
Toy like a toiga. So it's an entirely different style of martial art, jiu-jitsu is, than striking. So that's what you're training yourself for, is just to get used to that kind of stuff.
Right. Gotcha. And then you said Connor follows the vertical diet. Do you think that's super beneficial for an MMA fighter?
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It is. The point of the vertical diet is to help you get in as many carbohydrates as you can, so you can train harder and recover faster, while still maintaining. The premise of it is gut health. So, as someone who's, imagine if you're training twice. I guarantee you burn 1,000 calories every training session, right? Like at that level of, maybe not in like I might not burn 1,000 calories in one kickboxing or like one Muay Thai class where I'm doing something really technical, but I probably burn 1,000 calories during sparring, and they're sparring at least twice a day, basically. So they're burning minimum of 2,000 calories a day just in training, not including running days. Like, you need to get a lot of carbohydrates in, and then you're trying to cut weight, So I think vertical diet is awesome for any kind of fighter, period.
Yeah, because I was about to say I do really well on the vertical diet because I have some indigestion issues, especially like heartburn and stuff. And every time I switch back to a stricter vertical diet, I don't have those issues. I don't feel bloated. I don't feel like heartburn from what I eat. I feel very satiated, but like I never feel overly full either.
You don't feel stuffed. And you poop so much better.
I can feel like I can digest it. Oh yeah, hardcore.
Oh yeah, always poop so much better. But yeah, so I think he's I think he might become the next Anderson Silva, in the fact that Anderson
Mhm.
Silva, like, he wasn't a champion anymore. He wasn't in any championship bouts, but everybody loved to watch him fight because Connor's still a really good fighter. He's very unusual in
Yeah.
his fighting style. You know, he has a 74-inch reach, which is wild.
That's absurd.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absurd. He has monkey arms, you know. Um,
Mhm.
but so I think that he's going to draw a crowd similar to how Anderson Silva did. Like, Anderson Silva fought way after his prime. I want to say he was in his mid 40s, probably. I'm going to look it up now. Now that I'm
Mhm.
speaking out of my ass and I have a computer here. He stopped this year. He stopped fighting. Anderson Silva did. Yeah, and he's 46 years old.
Gotcha.
So I think,
Damn.
yeah, I think that he will be that kind of a fighter where he's still going to be ranked really high. Like,
Mhm.
Anderson Silva, even towards the end, was still ranked really high. Let me actually look and see, what does he fight in? I wonder if he's ranked or not. He'll probably be middleweight. No, I think you're retired. Yeah, so he's retired. So I don't think so. That's where Anderson Silva is going to go, in my opinion. I think, or not Anderson Silva, Conor McGregor.
Right.
He's going to be very similar to Anderson
Mhm.
Silva in the fact that he'll be doing, and I hate to say token fights, but I mean that's really what it's going to be. He'll just do fights here and there. He won't be a killer. I think he's lost his killer instinct. There's just too many people that are hungrier than he is, and they just want it more, and they're going to train harder, and he just doesn't have to, to make a living.
So I have two questions for you, Jupe.
Mm-hmm.
One is, do you think, even though I would agree with you, I think he's at the tail end of his career, do you think he has left his mark on MMA where he is infamous? Like, he truly is infamous, and whoever continues with MMA will know who Conor McGregor is? And then my second question is, who do you think would be the next Conor McGregor?
I don't know if there will be. When you say that, do you mean like who's going to dominate as much as Conor McGregor, or like,
Correct, yeah.
or like from a fight perspective, or like have his kind of attitude?
I would say something of a combination of the both,
Mm-hmm.
because I think they have to draw a crowd, right?
Right.
But the other reason Connor drew a crowd is because he did win a lot. Like,
Yeah.
he was a good fighter.
22 wins.
So
Yeah.
it's not only the personality, like who one has at least somewhat of the personality, but also could do what he did, fight in 3 different weight classes and be successful in all 3 of them.
Yeah. So I forgot what your first question was. I was so focused on the second one.
Oh, the first one was, do you think he's left his mark on MMA where he's infamous and everyone will know who Conor McGregor is?
Yeah, definitely. I think he absolutely has. I mean, he's dominated for so long. He just has the kind of attitude. I guarantee you that Ireland will never forget him. Period. And I think he absolutely has made his stamp, and he will forever be a phase and a milestone of UFC. And of MMA. He absolutely has made a mark where he's part of an era where he was just the golden child of UFC. As far as the next person, I think in terms of having the same attitude and being as dominating, it's gonna be probably Israel Adesanya, would be my guess. So Israel is an absolute striking master. Number one, he's actually had 100 professional fights. Not just in UFC, but just overall. So he did a lot of kickboxing back in the day. Now he's doing UFC. UFC. And he is the current middleweight champion. He's defended his belt 3 times now, and he's not lost. Wow. He has this. Remember, we talked about just the tells and being in the feeling it. He just has the most ridiculous ability to pick people apart. So he'll just like sit back and watch you, in the second that you're like, oh my goodness.
This episode is presented by Jupe's Dogs.
This episode is presented by all the 6,000 dogs in my house right now. But he just has this uncanny ability to pick people apart and pick his shots and just boom, lay people out. He's an absolute machine. He also has got a hell of an attitude behind him. He's called the last style bender because he is obsessed with anime. So he always does like ridiculous anime crap all the time. And like, I think at one point, like he put somebody on the ground and he like pretended to hump them in the middle of the ring. Like he's not so much into it in press conferences. But he has a little bit. He talks a little bit of shit outside the ring, but when he's in the ring, he's the most cocky SOB, and he just shows off. So I think that Israel Adesanya will probably be the next like phase of UFC, being the next Conor McGregor, if I could compare the two.
Yeah, I get you. That makes sense.
That's what I got. He's not my new favorite though, but
Connor's still your favorite?
I don't know anymore because he's kind of being an asshole.
Damn.
Yeah, I love Conor McGregor for sure, but his last little like on the ground with a broken ankle, and you're gonna talk shit about somebody's wife, like that kind of pissed me off.
Yeah, that was kind of dumb.
Yeah,
I agree.
But yeah, guys, is there anything else? I think we covered a whole lot of shit today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I like this one.
Yeah, hell yeah, guys! This has been the newest installment of the Make It Happen podcast, the Conor McGregor recap edition. Until next time, y'all. Love, peace, and protein.
Peace.